Welcome, everyone, to the Jude 3 podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Jude 3 podcast.
What is me is?
I don't know. My lack of education is coming up on me. But, of course, I am your host, Rick Clark. I'm joined here with my guest co-host, Jason
I'm the
Howard.
co-host now?
You're the co-host now. And after that little stunt you pulled earlier, calling me white privilege, I believe is the phrase.
Well, that's not as bad as what you call me.
Well, look, I wanted to be truthful with the people.
I was trying to help you, Rick. You know that you have lived a privileged life.
I wish.
And I'm trying to strengthen you in the faith. So I proposed this challenge to strengthen you, and it's backfired on me. I'm losing terribly.
You are losing. That's so. And I think with the losing this poll,
will
humble you, and should also give me some, because in a sense you're losing the poll, so I'm winning the poll. So that should give me the title of host.
No, that's not what it was. That wasn't the deal. It wasn't the deal.
Well, it is now.
We're equal.
We're equal. Okay.
But now, if y'all didn't see the video we posted to our Facebook channel 30 minutes or so ago, we have announced the challenge. But let's go ahead and do that again here, Rick, before we get into what is a very important show today.
Right.
I have a friend, Brother Rick, who is a professional wrestler, and he is the Wildcat. Well, at his home, he has a wrestling ring set up, and so we're there's going to be a wrestling match. Okay, we both agreed that that's the challenge. If Rick wins, which means if I get the most votes, Rick wins. If Rick gets the most votes, I win. But if I win by Rick getting the most votes, I get to choose Rick's character for the wrestling match. If Rick wins, he's choosing my character for the wrestling match. But I go ahead and tell you now, I'm going to jump off the top ropes and put the elbow in your forehead, Rick.
Look, you can do everything you want to, but like I said earlier, I've been preparing for this for my entire life. I am one of the biggest wrestling fans you'll ever meet.
Rick, I'm going to tell you, though, I need to stop you. No. Playing wrestling on video games does not prepare you for real-life battle. That's what you're stepping into is real life. This ain't fake wrestling.
Exactly.
This ain't
hey, those video games is training.
Well,
that is training.
I trained riding bulls.
And I train in jiu-jitsu.
That's watered on the floor. Like you have a kidney stone. That's not wrestling. That's not wrestling. Wrestling is what you see in WWF Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
You're going to have to last a lot longer than 8 seconds with me, boy.
Oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So, go vote in the poll. You can't see. Yeah, that's who you are. You're Rick Cena.
That's right.
All right.
I'm the underfaker.
I'm Hacksaw Slim Duggan.
There you go.
All right, tell us about our Rick. Remind our viewers about our Baptist Journal.
Quick reminder: the Jude 3 Baptist Journal, the March edition, is out. If you haven't subscribed to that, please send us your email, and we will get you on our mailing list. And we try and put these out once a month. And so please do. This is a great month that we've got here. Good article titled "More Than a Book" about on Hebrews 4 verses 12 through 13 by none other than me, Rick Clark. And then of course we have a few other things, and one of Jason's favorite people in the world, a woman by the name of Madam H.P. Blavatsky. See, he even knows her name. And so she was a Russian occultist, and she had a lot to say about these modern Bible versions. And it's just a great article all the way around. And a great newsletter all the way around. So please subscribe to the Jude 3 Baptist Journal. And speaking of subscribing, please go to our Facebook page if you haven't already. Follow it, like it, go to YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the notification button so that you can be made aware just as soon as we come on with one of our Jude 3 podcasts. Have I missed anything, Jason?
No, I think you covered it well. We
right.
have a good subject today, I think, Brother Rick. Is timely, and the subject is something I've just really recently have heard about. It's something called Christian nationalism.
Yeah, people have been talking about it, and I've just recently been made aware of it since maybe Trump was our president.
Yeah.
And so people are talking about like it's something old, but I'm just now hearing about it.
Yeah, I stumbled on it. We're going to show you a video in just a minute of a news anchor on MSNBC that this is how I first was made aware of it. And then I got to looking into it a little bit more. I also got a video with a clip of Rob Reiner, who recently, I don't know how recent, but in pretty recent history, made a documentary called God and Country.
Yeah, that's just been out within, I don't even want to say a month now. It's just a few weeks.
I want to watch it, but I didn't know this, that Rob Reiner was one of the stars in the show All in the Family.
Oh, he was Meathead.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that's the most politically incorrect show probably that's ever been. Now, who's the Archie
Bunker?
Oh man, it's hilarious. Yeah. You couldn't play that on television.
Was it Carol O'Connor? Was his name?
This is funny. I go sometimes to YouTube, just watch the clips. of them talking about that kind of stuff.
Who would have ever thought Carol O'Connor, Archie Bunker, would end up being a sheriff of a small town in Mississippi in the heat of the night?
Hey, Rick, before we get started, let's kind of go over the outline so we can let's read some of these things that we're going to be discussing in this. And by the way, we want you to interact with us. If you're watching this, put your comments, your questions on Facebook. We can see them. Even if it's after the show is over, you're watching it, it's not live, you can still comment and we'll try to, interact with you. But kind of let's go with the outline, the flow of things today.
All right. Well, the first thing I want to discuss is was America founded upon biblical/Christian principles?
Okay.
All right. And then we'll talk about the Bill of Rights and why we have them. What's the difference between a republic and democracy, autocracy, I think is how it's said, a theocracy. What did our founders envision? What is Christian nationalism?
It's hard to define.
It is, because you've got the enemies of it that will say one thing, and then you got the proponents of it that say it's another.
Yeah.
And so those are some of the things we're going to try and discuss and get to during our podcast today.
Are you ready to get into it and watch this first video, Brother Rick?
Let's get into it.
All right, let me see if I can get this pulled up here and hit the play button. Here we go.
We're not united.
We got to replay it. Here we go.
The one thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump, but the thing that unites them as Christian nationalists, not Christians, by the way, because Christian nationalist is very different,
Mhm.
is that they believe that our rights as Americans, as all human beings, don't come from any earthly authority. They don't come from Congress. They don't come from the Supreme Court. They come from God. The one thing that unites all of them, because there's many different groups orbiting Trump, but the thing that unites.
Okay, Brother Rick, you heard what this
The
lady
one thing
said.
that unites all of them, because there's
Well,
many
she's
different
still
groups
talking.
orbiting
She's
Trump,
still
but the
talking.
thing that
Just like a woman.
unites them as.
Oh, you in trouble now. You are in trouble now. All right, let's see. Here we go. All right, we got it
All right.
straightened out now.
All
Okay,
right.
so let me just recap this for you,
All right.
Brother Rick.
What did she say?
One, she said the one thing that unites Christian nationalists from
Mhm.
Christians is that, and there's a difference in her mind, is that Christian nationalists believe that their rights come from God and not from any type of, government established by man. I thought all Christians believe that.
I did too.
I thought our founders believed that.
It seems like there's a writing somewhere.
Is it called the Declaration of Independence?
I think it's an obscure writing that nobody's really seen, called the Declaration of Independence. So,
well, we'll read a little bit of that, Brother Rick.
All
You
right.
got it right there in your hand.
All right, I'll go ahead and I'll read that portion right there. How does that sound?
Okay.
Or you
sounds
want me
good.
to start at the very beginning?
It's just a short paragraph,
right,
so
here
let's
we go.
start at the beginning.
All right. It says, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. You want me to keep reading?
No, I think that's.
All right.
I mean, if you can't understand that,
then you need to go back to middle school and take
you
another
need to go back to pre-K.
civics school. Yeah, you need
Start there.
to take a civics course or something.
So it said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, self-evident means
Obvious.
it's obvious.
It's obvious.
Okay, that all men are created equal. Now, let's be honest. It took a while in the course of the history of the United States. I guess we're still pursuing that, right? But because of the Constitution, we were able to overcome slavery and different things like that. It took a while, but they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, which means you cannot take these rights. They're inherent to humanity. That among these are life, which they deprive the unborn of that one. Liberty, all right, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, that to secure these rights, in other words, the founders acknowledge these rights come from God, but that it is inherent to human nature that there'll be people who try to take these rights away from you. So government is then established to secure the rights. In other words, to make sure that the God-given rights that we have are secured. So I don't think that's something that's, Brother Rick, that is that's just that Christian nationalists believe. Now, whatever Christian nationalism is, I'm not sure I've got my mind fully wrapped around it. But if they believe that, if that's all that Christian nationalism is, I don't think it is, but they're not wrong on that point.
No. And for somebody to deny that is, well, they're not very bright.
Well,
they need to read. I mean, if they're claiming to be political, what's the word I'm looking for? Political know-it-alls.
They don't know
They don't know
at all.
They don't know nothing at all. Yeah. I mean, to say that you're an expert in politics and then say that, your rights come from the government and not a creator, then you need to go back and read just the first paragraph, 2 paragraphs of the Declaration of Independence.
Okay, now the first question we want to entertain is this: Was America founded upon biblical / Christian principles? You could even leave off the Christian part. Just put, was it founded upon biblical principles?
Yeah.
And
most people say Judeo-Christian principles,
or values or whatever,
which would be biblical principles.
Okay, now if you go back and look, I believe it's obvious that it was founded upon biblical principles. They, a lot of times matter of fact, in the Constitution, it talks about the laws of nature and of nature's God. Right, so they recognized a God. Now, all the founders were not quote unquote Christians. You had all different stripes of church affiliation with them. You had theists that were among them.
And what is a theist? Just for those that might be watching, not sure.
That just believe in God.
Believe in a God, not necessarily a Christian God or Jewish God. They just believe that there's a God.
But it seemed to be an overarching theme among the founders that they believed that there was a God, and predominantly in the Christian God or the biblical God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they incorporated these principles into the founding of our nation. And it ought to be obvious to people that that's the case. I was going to read a few things to you, Rick, or to our viewers. In the government buildings, inscriptions, and mottos, here's some things that you find.
All right.
Of course, the words "In God We Trust" are inscribed in the House and Senate chambers. On the walls of the Capitol dome, these words appear: the New Testament, according to the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. In the rotunda of the Capitol is the figure of the crucified Christ. A painting depicting the baptism of Pocahontas at Jamestown hangs in the Capitol rotunda. The embarkation of the Pilgrims shows Elder William Brewster holding a Bible open to the title page, which reads, "The New Testament of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ." The words "God with us" are inscribed on the sail of a ship. This painting also hangs in the rotunda of the Capitol. A relief of Moses hangs in the House chamber. Moses is surrounded by 22 other lawgivers. The Liberty Bell has Leviticus 25:10 prominently displayed, and a band across its top proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto the inhabitants thereof. You could just go on and on.
Yeah.
Engraved on the metal cap on top of the Washington Monument are the words, "Praise be to God." Lining the walls of the stairwell are numerous Bible verses: "Search the scriptures," "Holiness to the Lord," and "Train up a child in the way he should go." The crier who opens each session of Supreme Court closes with the words, "God save the United States and the honorable court." I mean, my goodness, you could just go on and on.
Yeah.
So to me, it's quite obvious that the founders, based the government off really the government that you find in the Old Testament, where with Moses, you had the power and the people at the bottom is depicted in a triangle. So you've got the people at the bottom, that's where the power's at. And then up from there, you have a pyramid shape of different stages of government that gets further and further away from the people, but all the consent is within the people. Wasn't it Thomas Jefferson there's a story that's told that visiting a Baptist church, he saw the simplest form of government and incorporated that into the founding of America?
That's what I've heard.
We talked about that on one of the shows. John Adams said, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Morality and virtue are the foundation of our republic and necessary for society to be free." So we're going to watch a video in a minute of Rob Reiner. And Rob Reiner said that Christianity is part of the fabric of the United States of America.
Well, at the same time, arguing against that.
Yeah, and he's a secular guy. I mean, he's no
Christian. In fact, I think he says he's Jewish.
Yeah,
but not a practicing Jew.
Yeah,
right.
In about 1830, so let me read you one more quote, and we'll move on to the next portion. Frenchman named Alex de Tocqueville. You ever heard of him?
No.
So he came over to the United States. This quote's attributed to him. Of course, like anything, there's people that say he didn't say it, but it's attributed to him a lot. He come looking at the democracy. And by the way, America is not a pure democracy. I get
No.
so outdone with watching people on TV talk about our democracy, our democracy. The founders argued against a democracy because it's mob rule, and instead they favored a republic,
right,
which protects the rights of the minority. Because if you live in a pure democracy, the minority, whoever that minority is,
they're going to be oppressed.
They don't have any rights.
Yeah, they don't have anything.
But he said this: I sought for the greatness and genius of America in her commodious harbors and her ample rivers, and it was not there. In her fertile fields and boundless forests, and it was not there. In her rich mines and her vast world commerce, and it was not there. In her democratic Congress and her matchless Constitution, and it was not there. Not until I went into the churches of America and heard her pulpits flame with righteousness did I understand the secret of her genius and power. America is great because she is good, and if America ever ceases to be good, she will cease to be great. What do you think about that quote?
That's
pretty profound, isn't it?
Yeah.
If America ever ceases to be good, America will cease to be great.
Right.
Which begs the question, is America good? I don't want to be unpatriotic, but there's a lot of things that's going on that's not good.
Right.
It's not good at all. The Bill of Rights.
Okay.
The Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights was given to protect the rights of the minority.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's read, Brother Rick, the first one, Amendment number 1 of the Bill of Rights.
Okay.
Y'all be familiar with this.
Because this is the one that really pertains to our discussion today. All right. The Bill of Rights, of course, is the first 10 amendments.
Okay, and let's before we read that. There was a Baptist preacher who had a great influence on us having the Bill of Rights. His name was John Leland.
Okay.
And because John Leland was in Virginia, the Baptists were persecuted in the colonial days. They wanted to make sure that that there was going to be granted religious freedom, and they fought for this. And because of his influence, John Leland, a Baptist minister, we have this first amendment to the Bill of Rights, which reads,
all right, it says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
The first one. First one says that Congress, and this is talking about the United States Congress, shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, of any religion.
Right.
Now, whether, and this may be where you get into Christian nationalism, whether that be Christianity or Hinduism or, Islam or any religion, it shall make no law establishing, respecting and establishing an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's kind of where they get separation of church and state from, but it's not really separation of church and state. It's separation of religion.
Yeah,
well, establishment of, but that doesn't.
The whole separation of church and state was mentioned in a letter that one of our founding fathers wrote,
Thomas Jefferson, to the Danbury Baptist Association.
Yeah, and so that's where the separation of church and state says, but that phrase is nowhere found in our.
My question about that is, Brother Rick, I understand the importance of having a separation of an established religion. People say, well, that all sounds good unless the religion established is not your religion. So you can't have the government establish a religion, because then it's going to oppress those who don't identify with that religion.
Right.
But is that to say that religion has no influence? I mean, that's not even possible.
No, I mean, it's obvious from the founding documents that religion had a influence in
the Christian religion.
Yeah, and it had great influence in the founding of our nation and the creation of our documents. But the freedom of religion just means that the government can't tell you what God to worship or how to worship. They can't establish a church state, I believe, is the most important thing about it. So people will take that and run with it and say that there should be no religious influence in government, which it's actually the other way around. There should be no government influence in religion.
All right, so let's do this before we get this next video.
All right.
What is the difference between a republic and a pure democracy? In other words, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it stands.
All right. But you hear this all the time, especially from the liberal, and even conservatives are getting, I don't know, caught up into this. We don't live in a democracy.
No, we don't.
We live in a form of democracy. It's a republic, but it's not a pure democracy.
No, it was the Democratic Republic.
Yeah. So what's the dangers of a democracy? When they were arguing against a democracy, here's what one of the founders said. When they were arguing against having a pure democracy, I forget who made the comment, but the statement was made by one of the founders that when he was arguing for a republic and against a democracy, he said, when the majority of a nation becomes immoral, he said democracy will destroy us. Because if the majority of the nation is immoral and democracy is purely mob rule, the majority who are immoral are going to impose laws on the minority that are unjust and will destroy us. So you had a republic. And in the republic, you had a charter, the Constitution. You have laws. We're a nation of laws. The Bill of Rights protect the minority, whoever that minority may be, Christians or whatever group it is. So the difference in democracy and republic is a government through representation. With the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. Democracy is just purely mob rule, which I don't want to live in a democracy.
No.
Because the majority, I think, in the nation, if it was purely that, I don't think that they align with me, Brother Rick.
No.
Even though you said I was a liberal earlier today.
Well, but you're playing your character right now.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's what it is. Yeah.
I'm in full form.
Form right you're now. In your character form.
All right, so you got a democracy, republic, but then you've got an autocracy, which is really a dictatorship. It's the power invested in one person or one small group. All right, which is what they're claiming of Trump, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
Or a theocracy, which is government ruled by
God.
By God. Well, and this time it would be, when I studied it a little bit, looked it up, government ruled by a religion or a priestly class, or it's ruled based off from a religious perspective. All right. And our founders didn't envision an autocracy, a theocracy, or even a pure democracy, but a republic, and that's what we have.
That's what we have.
Matter of fact, when they came out of the Constitutional Convention, somebody asked one of the founders, "What have you given us?" And he said, "A republic, if you can keep it."
Right.
And that's been the struggle, is keeping the form of government that they give us.
And that's the struggle that we've got now with Republicans and Democrats.
Well, you're supposed to have three branches of government, right? Legislative makes laws, the executive executes the laws. That's the president. And then you've got
judicial,
which interprets the laws. But in a lot of cases, the executive is overreached. How many executive orders? Well, no matter what party it is, executive order. Congress not doing their job, obviously.
Congress does something that they have really don't believe any right to do, is they create organizations that create law, the EPA and such things.
Unelected bureaucrats that are making
laws. Yeah.
Then the Supreme Court legislate, not just the Supreme Court, but courts
in general
legislate from the bench.
Right. It means they just make up stuff, make up laws as they go.
So it's a republic if you can keep it. All right. Now, what did our founders envision? Okay, so did they envision for America to be a Christian nation, or for this nation to simply be founded upon biblical principles which give people liberty of conscience? What do you think, Brother Rick?
Well, I think that's really hard to say because I can't separate biblical principles from Christianity. Yeah. And so with all the stuff that we see, I tend to believe it was created to be a Christian nation.
But what does that mean? That's the question, really. When you say America's a Christian nation, that can mean so many different things.
Yeah, and like I said, to me, if it's based on principles that we find in the Bible, then it's a Christian nation.
But what the Christian people, the people that are sounding the horn against Christian nationalism, say that what they interpret Christian nationalists to mean, and they very well may mean it, is that for America to be a Christian nation means that, it's almost like there's a litmus test, right? So if you're going to hold office, you got to be a Christian. If you're that the laws are to be promoting Christianity, that to me goes against the Constitution. But to say America is a Christian nation by virtue of the fact we're built on biblical principles,
our foundations are
biblical, and then if America is predominantly Christian, and that word is used way too loosely,
right? Yeah.
But you remember the video of Obama? And when he said, whatever America once was, it is no more. When he says it's no longer a Christian nation, it's a nation of Hindus and Muslims and those that believe in no God. So I don't even know what people mean when they say, it depends on who you ask. Did our founders intend for America to be a Christian nation? The answer to that really is determined by what you think it means for America to be a Christian nation.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I wish it was in the sense that our laws reflected those values that we believe, that, people held to that, and we're getting further and further away. I mean, church attendance is on the decline. Churches are closing their doors. You look and see all this going on around us, the things that you see taking place in laws and what's being advocated for are not biblical principles or Christian values. So it begs the question, really, is America a Christian nation?
Yeah.
Well, do you think it is at this point? It'd be a hard thing to judge, wouldn't it?
I know it shouldn't be interpreted like this, maybe, but it was the church was the Church of Sardis,
where the name that lived, they were dead.
They were dead. Where he said, "What little," I'm trying to paraphrase that. What little things remain strengthened.
Yeah,
I kind of think that's where we're at. We still have a glimmer of hope, and we need to, what few biblical principles there are, we need to hold on to them dearly and try and bring back what we've lost.
All right. Do we agree that, at least on this, let me ask you this question. Did our founders envision a nation that was founded upon biblical principles which give people liberty of conscience? In other words, did you think that they believed that they were creating a nation in which whatever your beliefs are, you should be free to express those beliefs in worship, so long as they didn't disenfranchise another from their pursuit of happiness? In other words, do you think the founders believed that a Muslim should be able to free to worship, that a Hindu should be able to be free to worship, that a Buddhist should be able to be free to worship according to their conscience, so long as their practice of worship didn't lead them to bomb somebody else?
Yeah, honestly, that's something that I've often struggled with, because I've often thought in my mind that when they spoke of religion, it was Christianity.
You're a Christian nationalist.
I guess so. And under my conviction, I don't see any way like I could vote for, no matter how conservative they may come across, I don't see where I could, in my conscience, vote for a Muslim to be in office, because their religion dictates that if it's for the good of Islam, that they can lie. Right. So they may be a Muslim. They we're not this terrorist type Muslim, but who's to say? Because their religion dictates they can lie as long as it advances the cause of.
So you Islam. Believe? I'm asking a question.
All right.
That the freedom of religion extended only to various forms of Christianity, or do you believe it extended beyond that?
I think there's a place that other religions can prosper under this, but I think the main focus was upon Christianity.
So I'm just trying to pin you down.
Yeah, because if Islam is carried out to its full extent as to what is taught by Muhammad in the Quran, it goes completely against everything America stands for.
So let's take it away from that just a minute. Let me give you another scenario. Mm-hmm. Do you believe? Let me ask the question this way: do you believe that the United States, under the Constitution, the United States government has the authority and the power vested in them through the Constitution to establish a law that prevents the worship of peaceful people, whether they're Christians or not.
Yeah. Well, peacefully, then I would say, yeah, I think the Constitution does prevent.
Okay. So we're trying to get it in the realm of people that's not trying to kill people, people that's not trying to take your rights to worship and your liberty of conscience away, which obviously, if you followed Islam to the letter,
it's going to do that.
It's going to do that.
Okay.
But it'd be hard pressed to make that case for Hinduism
or Buddhism
or Mormonism or, several other various religions. But when you get to Islam, it's a different thing. So it really is a slippery slope, because if you start taking the rights away from some, what if the government flips and then they look it up, which they do, by the way.
Oh yeah,
we're the threat now.
Yeah, we're the terrorists. Yeah, we're the extremists.
So if you promote the government being able to take the right to worship away from some, you're endangering your own liberty.
Yeah.
So it's a tough thing. So where were we at there, Brother Rick?
Let's see.
I got to play this video of Rob Reiner. He talks about this just a little bit. Where are we at on our outline? Okay, if America is a Christian nation, what does that mean? We talked about this a little bit. Does that mean that Christianity is simply the predominant religious view, or that Christianity should be the supreme religion, insomuch that Christianity takes precedent in the political realm over all other religions? I think that based off what you said, you would think that Christianity should take precedence over all other religions.
I think so, because at least because that's our principles of our nation was founded upon.
My question, though, Brother Rick, is how do you and I'm trying to parse this out in my mind.
And I don't know if I would use the phrase "take precedent over," but as far as the moral standards that have been set forth from the Word of God, whether you want to call that Christian or not, because a lot of morals are held by a lot of the same morals are held by Buddhists that Christians hold.
How do you have morals in the absence of a belief in God? That's the question that comes up in debates all the time.
Yeah, in my opinion, you can't,
because they're always subjective, right?
Right.
You have no absolute basis.
Who's to say the Holocaust was bad?
Well, I watched debates where people that are atheists are debating someone who's religious, usually predominantly Christian. But they'll ask them a question like, well, do you believe murder is wrong? And the atheist will say, yes, I believe it's wrong. And then the Christian person will be like, well, what do you base that on? Where do you get your morality from? Where do you get and they'll say something, well, I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. Well, that's the golden rule.
Right.
It comes from the Word of God. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. I tell you what, while you're talking, let me get this other video.
And I was going to say too that they'll often appeal to societal standards. That it's society that decides what's moral and what's not, and so it'll be subjective, like you said.
All right, let's watch this video right here, Brother Rick.
All right.
See if we can get some of Rob Reiner.
Talk specifically about how this movement is completely antithetical to the teachings of Jesus. And that's really what is what you have to focus in on, because the idea that you could promote a political agenda in the name of God, and that would give you permission to resort to any means to get what you want, up to and including violence, which we saw on January 6th, is completely antithetical to the teachings of Jesus, which is love thy neighbor, do unto others, and so on.
One of those theologians you talk about who appears in the film is Russell Moore. He's the editor-in-chief of Christianity Today, and he makes exactly that point.
The Bible does depict a warrior Jesus, just with a very different kind of warfare. The warfare takes place spiritually through the means of the gospel, not through physical violence. In the New Testament, Jesus repudiated that when his own disciple, Peter, pulled out the sword to defend him from being arrested. And Jesus said, put away your sword. Those who live by the sword will perish by the sword.
How big is this movement?
Christian nationalism, the way we talk about it in the film as this political movement, it is not the majority. It is far from the majority. And what is scary is that because of the way our system works, a very virulent minority can control our politics.
All right, I want to talk about that.
All right.
He said a very virulent.
But yeah, whatever
I
that
got to
word
work
was.
on my pronunciations. They control the majority. So I'm listening to Rob Reiner talk about this. And he's talking about Christian nationalism as a political movement that uses God as its authority to enact legislation, whatever, by any means necessary, up and to include violence, which he talks about January the 6th as an insurrection, which I don't think it was.
No.
But here's what struck me about that. It seems like that's exactly what these other groups do.
Exactly.
What does LGBTQ plus 48,900 other genders do?
I think the LGBTQ movement, the alphabet people, they're what, less than 3% of the population? And
they're the virulent minority.
Yeah, they're the biggest
ones
minority.
That go into. You've seen videos on YouTube of these people going into Catholic churches, and I'm no Catholic, but you know, and Antifa.
Yeah,
you think about Black Lives Matter and the riots and
they're the ones using violence to.
But they don't seem concerned about that.
No, absolutely not.
It's just these Christian nationalists.
Yeah, and I don't know of any quote Christian nationalist that encourages violence. Except they always go back to January 6th, which there was nothing violent. I mean, did it look bad? Yeah, but there was nothing violent about it. The only violent thing that happened was when that police officer shot one of the protesters that was there.
Well, there's a lot about the January the 6th that if I said too much, I might get deplatformed and get the FBI on my case or whatever. But here's the question. The point he makes is, should Christianity be used as a political movement? So, and then I asked this question: what place does religion have in politics? So how does Christians influence the political process? Right. So how do you do it without Christianity becoming a political movement? Is Christianity a political movement? I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. Now, do I think our Christianity can influence our politics? Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's a movement. It's just your set of standards.
Okay. How does the average Christian, and we see what's going on in the nation around us, a decline in morality, a movement away from biblical principles, embracing. By the way, every law is a reflection, in my mind, of some system or some person's view of morality.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter what law it is.
Yeah.
There's no law that's created in the absence of something being right and something being wrong.
I've heard people often say you can't legislate morality, but
that's what you're doing
anyway.
Yeah. I don't, and I stand. I don't understand people. They only say that of Christians, but to me, every law is based on some system of morality. Of we're making this law because someone's being oppressed or suppressed, or someone's rights have not been freely given to them or fully given to them. But it's always based in some person's idea or conception of what morality is.
You can't drink and drive because it's illegal to drink and drive, because if you're drunk and driving, you can kill somebody or yourself
and take their right of the pursuit of happiness away.
Right. Yeah.
So how do Christians then, if we don't want to think of Christianity as a political movement and don't want to get into the realm of being called a Christian nationalist, and I'm still struggling with this whole concept because it seems so convoluted. How do we influence the political landscape? How do we influence laws? How do we influence legislation? How do we influence these things?
I guess the simplest way to say that we influence these things is to vote and let our opinions be made known. Like it says here that we have the right to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
All right. So we vote. But you've got to be able to make your voice heard beyond the vote, because the
Uh-huh.
LGBTQ's doing that,
Right.
And
that's
Antifa's doing
and
that.
so protests. We people protest the whole drag queen story hour, and there were people protesting when the whole gay marriage thing came up.
But it's not, at the same time, it's not like when I hear him talk about Christianity being a political movement, it's not like there's a third party called Christian Nationalists,
right?
or there's a third party of the Christians. It's Christians being involved in the political process through the means provided by the Constitution,
Yeah.
to petition the government for grievances, or to
Yeah.
vote people that represent you, that reflect your values, that you hope will pass legislation that also reflect those values.
Yeah, I would say that his accusation that Christian nationalism is a political movement is just a bloviation of what it really is, and that's just Christians voting and letting their conscience be made known.
You think that they're and this ain't an endorsement of Trump, but I'm certainly not voting for Biden, Rick. But
he's in character right now.
But I feel like a lot of this is just people just hate Trump so much.
Yeah.
And anybody associated with him is the threat. And this is the newest threat, is Christian nationalism, because they see a movement that's growing behind Trump. Like him, love him, hate him, despise him.
And probably what they're going to push for is anybody that they view in this movement, this Christian nationalist movement, will be labeled a terrorist.
That's scary, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
So what do we got left there?
What is Christian nationalism?
Let's try to define it. Christian nationalism, the way I understand it, is by their definition, is a means to an end. In other words, they feel like that Christians are using Trump, that Trump's co-opted Christianity, and that he is using this as a means to achieve election, and he stirs people up for good or bad, because people see what's going on around us. They're sick and tired of immigration, of having
illegal immigration,
and they're sick and tired of all of these other things being pushed down their throats. He said Christian nationalism uses Christianity as a means to an end, and that end, they believe, you hear this a lot, is some form of authoritarianism, where you've got power vested in this leader or this group. And then what they're afraid of, I think, is, which I don't want authoritarianism either, but they're using this as a fear tactic to get people to not vote Republican, to vote Democrat, because he keeps saying this is the most important election of your lifetime, which is not. The poll that we put on there is the most important election of your lifetime. So that's what they're trying to do, I think, is take something that is probably there exists, but that Trump and others use this as a means to an end, that he's co-opted this movement, and he's trying to use it to get elected, to establish himself as some form of authoritarian leader in the United States, which I don't think is ever going to happen.
No.
You'd see a rising up of people, I think even Christian people, if somebody tried to do away with the Constitution and establish themselves as a dictator or authoritarian or whatever.
And plus, Trump's been president before, and he didn't
do that.
Do any of that.
I heard Bill Maher say that he's never relinquished power, and if he gets in, he will not. He still won't relinquish power at the end of this 4-year term.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is it actually a threat? Okay, and then Rob Reiner said that Christian nationalism actually undermines biblical Christianity and is a threat not just to the nation but to churches themselves.
And it's because he's looking at Christian nationalism as a violent
extremist movement,
and it's not. You can't lay out one shred of evidence that there was ever any violence done among this movement in the name of Christianity.
But here's the thing. We say that and we know that, but they're going to point to January the 6th.
Yeah, it'll always come back to January the 6th.
They're still beating that drum.
Yeah.
Does Christian nationalism undermine biblical principles? Well, I guess that depends on how you define Christian nationalism.
Right.
All he knows about Jesus is love your neighbor.
Uh-huh.
Well, Jesus had a lot more to say than love your neighbor.
Yeah.
You know, he had a lot more to say. He did say, you know, we are supposed to do that and do unto others as we have them do unto us. But they use that. I've heard them use that against immigration. They're like, we're not loving our neighbors.
Right.
Because we don't just let the border down, let whoever. I don't think that's what Jesus was talking about.
No, and judge not.
I bet they've got a fence around their house. They ought to love their neighbor and let their neighbors
Let the
come in
neighbors
their house.
come in wherever they want to. Yeah.
I've got neighbors I love, but I don't want to come into my house unannounced or uninvited.
No.
I mean, you know, I don't. Rick needs to call before he comes to my house.
That's right.
Christian nationalism. So let's back up and just try to answer this. Is America a Christian nation? I'm gonna answer it this way, and you can answer however you want to.
All right.
I believe America was founded on Judeo-Christian biblical principles.
Mm-hmm.
That it's like Rob Reiner said, it's part of the fabric of our nation.
Uh-huh.
And I think if we ever get away from that, we're doomed.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think we're headed down that direction as we speak. I do not think that there should be any establishment of any religion. And the reason I say that is because it sounds good if that religion is the one you're ascribed to.
Uh-huh.
But the tables can turn. And then it's not the one that you subscribe to. And then you're on the other end of not being able to worship like you want to because the government has established laws that favor another religion.
It's like talking about that. I've heard where like people have gotten excited over here and like where certain public schools might allow like Bible classes to be taught in high schools, and people get excited about that. But let me ask you, do you want public schools teaching the Bible, or do you want somebody that is do you want churches teaching the Bible?
Personally, I'm against the Bible being taught in the public school. And I'll tell you why.
Because you don't know how it's going to be taught.
You know how it's going to be taught. They may say they're teaching the Bible, but what they're saying in the class is undermining.
Yeah.
They might be in there saying, we're teaching the Bible history, but we don't believe that there was a Genesis account. That's just metaphor, and that's just
the flood was local. It wasn't worldwide. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the Bible should be taught. I think
it's all metaphors and similes and
what. So, what about prayer in school?
I don't really have a problem with prayer in school.
But what if it's a Muslim praying? Then you got a problem.
I mean, I guess so. But then also too, the Christian can pray however they want to.
Yeah, but I'm talking about if you like in our small communities, you go to a high school football game. At least where I live, they still pray.
Yeah, us too.
I've never heard anybody other than a Christian pray. And if they don't pray in Jesus' name, they usually say, in your son's name. We know what they're indicating. But if you went to the high school in the small town I live in, and they had a Muslim get up there and pray, and he prayed in the name of Allah, there'd be an uprising.
There would, yeah.
But my point about that is to say this: I don't know how likely that is to ever happen. In some other places in our nation, more likely than where we live. But if you're for prayer in school, how can you not allow a Muslim to lead in prayer? How can you forbid it? If you do,
it's a good point. You also got to look at history of the nation too. And whenever the nation was founded, and Congress would meet, they would always have it opened up with a Christian prayer.
Yeah.
And so should that be allowed?
It's deep, Brother
Rick. Too deep for us to cover in a 1 hour.
Yeah, and our founding documents, a lot of them were dated in the year of our Lord. So Christianity is, like he said, you can't separate the history of America from Christianity.
Right.
But we don't live, right or wrong, good or bad, just factually. We live in a far more pluralistic society today than we did 200, 300 years ago. So, where they were praying to God then, it's because there wasn't the influence,
It wasn't no Islamic influence or
not like there is now, or all the others. So
would you say that based on that maybe some of our practices should change with the pluralistic society that we have now?
give me an example.
Like no prayer at school, no prayer in Congress, or
Well, first of all, I don't think that you can pass a law. Number one, let me tell you, I don't think that you can ever pass a law that forbids prayer in school. You cannot stop a student from
Right.
praying in school. You
But-
can't stop them from bowing their heads praying.
like when I say that, I mean like a public prayer, like over the intercom.
Well, so two ways to look at that. Personally, I don't want to ever see prayer to the Lord go away in any setting, whether it's at a ball game or starting the school day off or the pledge of the allegiance. I'd hate to see those things go away. But on the other hand, I don't ever want to see a Muslim praying.
Right.
So I don't know where you get the point to where you say, I would rather not allow any than to allow praying over an event in the name of a false pagan god.
Gotcha.
If I had to choose between those two, I would choose none as opposed to allowing
to
any and all. That's kind of where I'm at, and I think that's where it's going. To be honest with you,
yeah.
Hope it don't get me in trouble, but I don't want,
especially now that they've the what was it, somewhere just had a priest from the Church of Satan pray.
Can you imagine
at an open on city council meeting or something like that?
Well, it's like the displays in public. Used to at Christmas you'd see a nativity.
You see a nativity and a menorah for.
And now you see places where you've got occultist things set up because freedom of religion.
Right.
And so there again, what do? You either allow none or you allow any and ever. And I don't think you can have it both ways.
No.
So what are you going to choose in a situation like that? Well, I think where he's going with this is the Christian nationalists would say you can have the Christian,
but you can't have
anything else. And I don't know how that works, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Churches need to influence politics by preaching the gospel, one soul at a time, outreach, that type of thing. You can legislate morality in law, but not in the heart. And that's where it's got to start at is through the churches doing the work that Christ, the main work of the Great Commission was not a political work. It was a missionary work.
Right.
And when you change hearts, ultimately over time, you can influence society. So I think that's the way it's got to go.
I would agree with that.
All right. Well, we have fleshed this out as best as my mind can. I go and tell you, because you can watch 100 videos and everyone says something a little bit different, the pros, the cons.
Yeah.
But America was founded on biblical Judeo-Christian principles. That's what's made America great.
That is something we can't agree on.
It made America great. And whether Alex de Tocqueville said that or not, it was true that if America ever ceases to be good, America will cease to be great. So I think the bottom line is the churches have a lot of work to do.
I would agree.
Mount Gilead and Canaan's got a lot of work to do.
Sure do.
Every church does. All right, let's see. Let's remind people before we get off here today, Rick, to be sure to subscribe.
Jude 3 Baptist Journal. So give us your email and we'll put you on our mailing list for a subscription. Remember to like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube page, and hit that notification button as well.
Also, go to our Facebook page, go to the poll, and vote Rick.
Vote Jason.
Vote Rick.
Vote Jason. Because this is
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. And we're going to have a championship belt and everything.
What was that move where they took their head like this and dropped them on the...
It'd be the DDT.
I'm going to DDT you.
I'm going to hit you with a stone cold
right
stunner.
On top of the flat spot of your head right there.
Well, you be ready.
All right. We're going to get out of here. Let's play this video and get patriotic, Rick. You ready?
Go. I'm ready.
We out.